Hi there. I've been asked by my friend Jim Connor to tell a couple of stories about what it was like when I was working at the Winchester Mystery House back in the early 80s. He wanted me to tell a couple of the ghost stories that I personally experienced. So I thought rather than write it out, I would put it in a visual presentation with pictures. So let's take a look at the pictures. The Winchester House was built between 1884 and 1922. It was built by Sarah Winchester. Born in New Haven, Connecticut to wealthy, socially connected parents, she married William Wirt Winchester, who was the scion of the famous Winchester rifle fortune. Upon his death in 1881, she became sole heiress to that entire fortune. Grieved by her husband and young daughter's deaths, and convinced that those deaths were due to revenge of the spirits killed by the famous gun that won the West, she also felt much responsibility over the deaths of many and all of the innocent Indians killed by the rifle. So she moved west to sparsely populated San Jose, California in the Santa Clara Valley, and in 1884 moved into a small 8-room farmhouse and started building. She morphed that building by 1922 into an enormous house full of corridors, cupolas, bell towers, and eventually a movie theater complex. Now, legend has it that the Mystery House is not haunted by Mrs. Winchester, nor is it supposedly haunted by the people who were killed by the Winchester rifle. No, it's believed to be haunted by the people who worked for Mrs. Winchester, her servants, field hands, and the carpenters. Now, the story that I'm going to relate happened in 1981, and it happened to a guide that I worked with. Her name was Elizabeth. So the story that she told and what happened to her and the way she reacted to it, uh, she couldn't have made it up. She just didn't have the intelligence and the imagination. So what the story was one day in the wintertime, it was a quiet weekday, and it was at the end of the day, and Elizabeth was giving the final tour of the day. And when she was finished with the tour, there were a few of us who were still left working, and she came in, and she was all upset because she said that there was a little boy who was lost in the house. She'd seen him a couple of times on her final tour, and at one point she saw him at the top of a staircase. She called to him, and he just laughed and ran off into one of the roped-off sections of the house. So we got together, and we formed a search party, and we looked for this kid. And we looked and looked, and we couldn't find him anywhere. Finally, kind of concluded that Elizabeth must have been crazy because there was no one who was coming to claim a kid. Um, so we figured the kid probably just rejoined his tour, and that was that. We turned on the motion sensors, and it didn't detect anybody, so we all went home. Okay, fast forward 2 weeks later, and Elizabeth and I were assigned to do cleaning duty in the Winchester Rifle Museum, which is adjacent to the Mystery House. And in the museum, there are a lot of cabinets underneath the displays that have a lot of memorabilia and photos and whatnot that are not actually included in the display, but we were looking through some of those boxes, and Elizabeth found a picture. And she pulled this picture out, and she immediately began trembling like a leaf, and she went white as a sheet. She pointed to a little boy in the photograph. It was a photograph of a group of her farmers, carpenters, and there was a little boy in the center of the picture wearing overalls, a little curly hair. She pointed at him and she said, "That's him! That's him! That's the little boy!" And I said, "Elizabeth, what are you talking about?" She said, "Don't you remember a couple of weeks ago we were looking for the little boy lost in the house that I saw? That is him. He looked exactly like that. He's wearing the same cap, the same clothes, everything." I said, "Elizabeth, that's impossible. It couldn't be." Well, she was as white as a sheet, and she was just absolutely freaked out as can be. Well, we later found out that that picture was a picture of John Hanson and his some of his the carpenters. That little boy was the son of one of the carpenters who had been killed in one of the fruit dehydrators, and it had been killed around that time. So I can't. I've always remembered this story because I can't explain it. Um, Certainly, as I said, Elizabeth couldn't have made that up. She just didn't have the creativity to pull something like that off. Whatever she saw, she believed fully, and I believed it too. Um, so, I mean, there are many stories like that are told uh, by people who worked at the Mystery House. That's just one of them. There are many others, and if you've never been to the Winchester Mystery House, uh, please go. It's well worth it. It's an amazing house. Some of the best memories, working memories I have were associated with that house, and I still love it dearly to this day. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, so I hope you enjoyed it. And I will leave you with these words from Shirley Jackson, the great author of The Haunting of Hill House.
Hill House has stood for 90 years and might stand for 90 more. Within, walls continue upright, bricks meet, floors are firm, and doors are sensibly shut. Silence lies steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and we who walk here walk alone.